Good evening to one and all. I am Harnaman Singh. Today I'm going to talk to you about a space in India which is culturally very rich, but sadly enough has been a part of an active conflict for the past 70 years, and it's Kashmir. Before I begin my talk, I'd like to share a bit of trivia with all of you that I find very fascinating. Now, how many of you recognize the man to my right, Sugarman? You do? Amazing. How many of you recognize the man here, Mr. Biko? You do? How many of you know how these two are connected? Anyone? No? Okay. So Sugarman goes by the name, Sugarman is his album. His name is Sisto Rodriguez. He is a Mexican immigrant in United States of America. He was. I mean, he is, but, you know, he was born in 1942, so quite old now. He released 2 albums in 1971 in the USA. They didn't work. They tanked, completely tanked. But his songs were about the atrocities that immigrants face, and it was about the government hypocrisy and the way social life works and how it's shielded by a sense of hypocrisy. So very touching songs. Now, and Steve Biko here was the founder of the Black Consciousness Movement in Africa. He is an anti-apartheid martyr, and Nelson Mandela very famously said of him that if they had to kill Biko, because only then they could prolong apartheid. Now, how these two are connected is that somebody took a record of Mr. Rodriguez to Africa, and it became so popular in Africa that supposedly it sold more copies than Elvis Presley. And all this while, Mr. Rodriguez wasn't aware of it. Why? Because his producer had, jagged him, and he'd sold the rights. Steve Biko was a fan of Sisto Rodriguez, and Rodriguez used the term anti-establishment, and that gave the idea that, okay, you can rebel against the government. It's not, something impossible which was considered before. So it's so exciting that the atrocities one man faces in one part of the country under his circumstances can inspire people in, almost the other end to, run a movement. So that was the fact. Now, moving on. How many of you have heard of Kashmir? Yeah? How many of you know what the problem in Kashmir is? Huh? Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? You do? Okay. Yeah. Okay. How many of you actually know in deep depth what the problem in Kashmir is? I don't see any hands. Okay. So that is the problem. Now, to be or not to be, are we or are we not? That is the dilemma faced precisely by the people of Kashmir for the past 70 years. Now, Kashmir primarily has 2 major conflicts. One is the international border conflict, which most of you are aware of. The other is the ethnic and the religious strife that goes on. Now, this is the state of. Now, I'll quickly take you to through both of the problems, and then I'll quickly touch upon how we can, what measures can we take, or what acts we can undertake to help the problem. So, this is the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which was an independent state till the time British came in. But so now this is what the state of Kashmir looks like. It supposedly and legally probably belongs to India, but as you can see that parts of Kashmir on the top are occupied by Pakistan, and here the Aksai Chin region is occupied by China. So it creates a very complicated international border problem, since all these 3 regions are, fighting for it all the time. Now, so coming to the problem with Pakistan. So after the 1947 partition, there was Pakistan war, Kashmir belonged to India, so an artificial LOCO line was cleared, courtesy to the UN report India filed. But Pakistan formally funds a lot of militant groups, which keep crossing over to the LOC and they infiltrate Kashmir. And the worst thing they do is not the killing, I believe, but the worst thing they do is the brainwashing of the youth there in Kashmir. Moving on, the 1971 Sino-Indian War saw that China is occupying the regions, but that's neutral. They've occupied, that's fine. Nothing's happened. So quickly now taking you through the religious history of Kashmir. In 4th century BC, Hindu rulers, Hinduism is a religion. Hindu rulers occupied Kashmir, and the major population of Kashmir was what we call as Kashmiri Pandits. So it was predominantly Hindu. Then, in the 15th century comes the Mughals, the great Emperor Humayun. He captured Kashmir, and the next 3 centuries saw an active rise in Islamist culture in Kashmir. There was a great number of Muslims that came into Kashmir and decided to make it their homeland. So now we have 2 religions in Kashmir, which is Hinduism and Muslim. And these two have always been at war since time immemorial. Again, in the 18th century, because Muslim rulers were, they were not fair. They wanted everybody to convert to Islam, so they did a lot of injustice. So the Sikh ruler, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, he invaded Kashmir. Now, Sikhs don't have a very strong base point in Kashmir, but this gave a cultural infusion to Kashmir. Hinduism, the culture they have, Muslim, the culture they have, and Sikh culture also came in at play. So now, at Kashmir, we have 3 different cultures at play. And these 3 cultures led to this. As you might know, that Islam bans music. But these 3 cultures, the amalgamation of all these 3 cultures over many centuries and many years, it created a culture called Kashmiriyat, which was actually being a Kashmiri. It wasn't related to their personal religious identities. They practiced them, yes, but the food, the clothing, the dance forms, you can literally see how the infusions from Mughal culture, from Hindu culture, and from Sikh culture. And after years and years of struggle, of wars, there seemed hope for Kashmir. And then came in the British. So, then came in the British, and then again came in the British when they went away. They sowed they sowed the seed of, that Kashmir being a very tactical region with Pakistan, and hence the conflict began. So now, when there was a little hope for Kashmir to recover, to become better, comes the international border conflict. This is a usual scene in Kashmir. There is patrolling 24/7, curfews are active, theater is banned, you cannot gather at public places, shutdowns, and that is just on the government side. If you move to the militant side, brainwashing, detention of people, transporting them over the border, mass killings, and that is just the beginning. So now the question comes that how do you deal with such a complex problem? You have 3 regions fighting for space, and that space is very strategically located. Whoever has that space is on the head of the Indian subcontinent. He can rule politically and geographically. The problem is so complex that even after a month of research, it's not possible. Can you believe that there are no cultural organizations working in Kashmir at the moment? There is none. There is one group which works, but that is just a political agenda on the front. Because I believe that India, in the media, is highlighted as a growing country. Modi is visiting USA, Modi is visiting China, trade policy is extending, external policy is there. So Kashmir has been ignored. 70 years it's been since it's been an active war zone. So how do you go about tackling the problem? First of all, I believe that the first and the foremost aspect of tackling the problem is to acknowledge that the problem cannot have one solution. It's not a single problem. It's not one thing that you can tackle with one thing. There have to be short-run efforts and there have to be long-run efforts. It will take a lot of time, and it will take small efforts, customized efforts in customized areas because of the ethnic diversity, because of the diversification of views. Even Muslims have 3 categories: Shia, Sunni, and Sufi. So now, first of all, what I believe is that the Kashmiri youth has a lot of anger, a lot of rage because of discrimination and because of religious propaganda and because of brainwashing. So, and the only way of expression they have is of guns and bombs. That's it. I believe that providing them with tools of art, of music, of paintings, of anything is very useful, because I mean it won't be neutral art. It will discriminate against the people they hate, but at least that's a vent for them. Unless you allow them to vent their anger, they won't even listen to you. So in order to make them listen, I think we have to give them less harmful tools of art. And With art, I think a lot of media will come into Kashmir and actually, see what is going on. Because, currently nobody dares venture into Kashmir. Every second month there's a curfew, there's a militant strike, so they shut down the whole area. So with art, I feel it will bring exposure to Kashmir. For 70 years, this state has been hidden. People, I'm sorry, but people don't really know what is happening here. So the art will bring the necessary exposure. And over a period of while, their anger will subside down with the art. Those who have been discriminated against, the only way to, bring them to an equal pedestal is to positively discriminate. So you need to give them tools to win out. Again, the second point which I feel is, I think that there need to be small cultural infusions made in communities, specifically designed, considering the views of the community in mind. Because Kashmiriyat, the culture is there. And ironically, it's not the youth here which recognizes it. It's the old people, because they have been living there and they have been through the era where they themselves established the culture. So I feel if we can bridge the gap between the old population and the youth, I think that could be a very good, that could actually make the youth see that there has been a peaceful time in Kashmir, even when they were surrounded by atrocities. So that could really help us to target. Now, after that, if cultural meetings are not allowed, gatherings are prohibited, there are curfews. So in short, the youth cannot physically meet to create art, be it music or theater, anything, it's banned. There are no cinema halls in Kashmir. So I think we need to take them online. And that, again, the exposure part comes in. Online collaborations through Skype, people meeting, sharing music through SoundCloud. Whatever online tools we have, I think it's very important for us to take them online, because the best part about digital media is that it doesn't have a physical barrier. And that way they will be able to interact with people like you and people who gave such talks. And I think that will give them a broader horizon and know that, okay, they were a victim of religious propaganda. Last but not the least, I would call for for exposure. I think the problem is not covered much in media. If we can find ways to raise the issue in media, the diplomatic relations between India and Pakistan are very bad. If this issue is raised, there will be a big question mark. The progress of India will be questioned, and I shouldn't be saying this, but it's a healthy thing for us that because that will force the Indian government to take action, and not only political action, because that has failed over the past 60 years. It will force the government to take other kinds of action and to help probably fund cultural organizations in Kashmir so that they can work, and it'll be a start. And that's it. I'd like to end my talk there.